Attendance enabled, guys.
Sir, I had not marked yesterday's attendance.
Very good. Did you send me an email? Who was
No,
it?
sir.
Then please send me an email. Okay. Because see, um, I have to manage a lot of things. Okay, so there are so many Google Sheets that I have to manage at one time. So please send me emails. Okay, it becomes difficult for me to do it in a live lecture. Send me an email and I'll do that. Today's attendance is open, by the way. You have to mark it. Is Shreya okay? So Shreya, I think, is from the other batch, right? Sorry. Good morning. Um, by the way, from what I understand, about 170 of you have have filled the form that Shreya sent you guys. Uh, but from what I understand, your batch strength is somewhere around 240. So there are at least 60 more people or so who have not responded. Please do respond to that. It's a very important point in the course, because whatever we decide right now, that is how we will go about. After midsem, the classes will happen in that particular mode. And so one of the things that I must tell you is that I'm a bit confused with this option that a lot of people have selected, a mixture of both. The reason I'm confused is because it's even though I'm trying my best to try to assume the position of a beginner, it is practically not possible for me to think from the perspective of a beginner, right? I'll give you a very simple example. Yesterday's lecture that we discussed, I thought that will be a very difficult lecture for everyone. Okay, I thought that that amount of time that we will have will not be enough to discuss it. But it didn't really seemed to be the same, right? In fact, with the other section, the IT and CS2 section, it probably ended in about 15 minutes of time. But there were no queries at all. So there were only two possibilities: that either nobody studied, so there were no doubts at all, or that everything was clear to everyone. But if it was former, then of course, I can scold you, even though I'm not too good at scolding, but still I can scold you for not studying, and I can threaten you with some punishment, so that you get motivated to study. But if it was the latter, if it was the case that people actually knew that stuff beforehand. This was a feedback I got, that you guys are studying from some other sources as well, and this is why lecture 5.1 was not that difficult for you. If that is the case, then you understand that my whole perspective is wrong. The lectures which I feel are more important are not really that important. And for and sometimes we discuss stuff that I feel is too basic, that you would have gotten it in the first instant itself. So that is why, right? It is difficult for me to figure out what lectures should be live and what lectures should be recorded and discussed. Okay, so that is why I'm leaving this to you, because um, as a teacher, even I am confused, like what is the best way to teach you. Okay, some of the students have said this before as well, that they would like live classes over these shepherded sessions. And that time we simply ignored the discussion and we went ahead. But yesterday this thing came up again, that people would like live classes more. One valid point that came up was that many a times you are not able to understand the code, even though you are able to understand the concept. When I give you a coding example, you are not able to understand the example. This is what the feedback was, and this is why I said, okay, fine. Let us find another way in which we can simply discuss code. Okay. I also said that it is very difficult for us, for just because we can actually meet 3 hours a week. Okay, so in these 3 hours, it is very difficult for me to, number one, revise the lecture first and then start shepherding, because that, you all know, right, that 10 to 15 minutes just go away in finding shepherds. Can you hear me, stuff like that, right? My net is not working, your net is not working, am I audible? It takes up time. So so around 5 to 10 minutes go away in that, plus I have to select the shepherds. Then if I say, okay, 10 minutes more, where I will either discuss code or I will either recap the lecture, the amount of actual discussion time keeps on getting lower and lower, right? So this is why, when I went with these recorded. Yeah, sorry, Nehal, I made you the host because I thought the meeting might end. So, and this is the issue, right? The rest of my system works as expected, right? Um, what can I say? So, this currently my internet speed is exactly 100 Mbps, and yet for some reason WebEx doesn't agree with me, right? Uh, so this is another issue that sometimes WebEx behaves in a way that I cannot understand. So. Uh, uh, I simply, restarted my browser and I started it again, and now it's working. Anyhow, so this is another issue with live lectures that sometimes, I too would maybe Hemal. So anyhow, the
Sir,
idea is, yeah, go ahead,
I have a possible solution for your connection issues.
go ahead,
So
Pranav.
there's this thing called Cloudflare Warp. You can try to install it and try to use it. It's pretty good.
What is it? I mean, what exactly is it that you're talking about? I mean, is it a? I mean, what
So
kind of solution?
it's basically like a VPN,
Okay.
but it reroutes your traffic from your computer to a Cloudflare server and then to the server you're trying to connect to. So
Um,
like Indian ISPs have really bad routing, so it tries to fix that. Like it's pretty good for me. It
okay.
goes from 100 kbps to around 2 to 3 mbps.
Okay, okay. So we can try that, Pranav. But anyhow, I was going to talk about it that I received an email yesterday from some students that Microsoft Teams is also a possibility. That see, Pranav, the reason is, and I have never faced this issue with Google Meet. Okay, I don't
Yes, so
think.
because Google and Cloudflare are two of the companies which have the best routing in the world.
Yeah,
That's why.
right, right. And I'm pretty sure that this is a problem specifically with WebEx. It is not something that is a general problem, or I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe people say Zoom is also very good. I have not used Zoom for such large gatherings, but whenever I have tried joining Zoom, it worked well. So maybe Zoom also has some, because what happens is these companies, right, Cloudflare and something like that, right? They probably have some kind of, they must have some kind of commercial offerings as well. So it is possible that, for example, Zoom may have tied up with them, or something like that. Okay. That is what, Vatsal. I received an email yesterday that I think up to 250 students, we can use Microsoft Teams without any license or anything, right?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, it's the problem with WebEx only. My friends are also they're also my friends' college were also using WebEx. They were also having the same problem. Then they switched to
Yes.
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, so I understand, right? I mean, I can see it, right? Yesterday, in the middle of the meeting, uh, I started getting a message that you are not authorized to attend this meeting. I am the host of this meeting, okay? And I started getting a message that you are not authorized to uh, attend this meeting. So for some 10 minutes or so, I could not join my own meeting. Okay. So and I tried everything. I logged out, I logged in again. I restarted my browser. See, restarting browser itself is a huge issue because um, there are certain things which might not work well if you restart your browser. But everything, I tried everything, and then after 5 minutes or so, for some weird reason, it started working again. I think from the perspective of software engineering, what they probably do is they push up their changes, okay, without actually caring for their customers. This is the problem. um, a good software engineering team, they have to plan their builds, okay. So whenever you put a change in production, I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't want any I cannot comment anything about Cisco, but this is my best guess that if everything was working and then at one particular instant it stops, and then in 5 to 10 minutes again it starts working again, it means that a new change was introduced by the developers. It didn't work out, so they rolled back. Okay, this is, I mean, this is my understanding of whatever I know about software development. So this could be a problem, but anyhow, so yes, we are going to try out Microsoft Teams. um, I hope, because everyone is attending the electronics class, so I guess every one of you know how to access Teams, right? So I don't have to go through that awkward phase where half of the people don't even understand how to join a particular class. So I assume that you guys are already trained with with using Teams. So I will train myself, and we can start with Teams. Maybe not for tomorrow, but after midsem we are going to bring in a lot of changes. So after midsem we'll start using Teams probably. As of now, this is what I plan to. Of course, if we can go back to WebEx if things don't turn out well. But by the way, so again, I have a lecture on multi-dimensional arrays scheduled for today. The problem, assignment submission. Um, No, Nehal, there is no lab at all for this week. I had no plans for conducting a lab this week anyhow, right? Last week, I had planned to conduct labs. I had already created the questions for you, but then the TAs, at the last moment, they said that, sir, please leave us. We want to study for end sem and so on and so forth. So I had no other option. So I said, okay, anyhow, because I have made the questions. Um, yeah, Nitin, that is what they are saying. They are saying that I think up to 250 students, it is free. This is what I understand. I have not looked into Microsoft Teams licensing policy and pricing. Okay, 300 students. So then it's almost, we can basically conduct classes for the whole batch in one go as well. But anyhow, so that is the idea, that Microsoft Teams is free, just like Google Meet is free up to 100 people. Okay, you can have a meeting up to 100 people without buying any license. So that is the issue, Taran, that even though I have seen that 99% of the time it is less than 100 anyhow. But the problem is we cannot assume it, right? If even one student says that I could not join your lecture because it was up to the capacity, as a teacher, it is bad for me, right? I mean, I cannot deny you to join a classroom. I cannot say that the first 100 people will be taught, the next 20 will not be taught. I cannot say this, right? So in theory, I have to prepare a solution where the full batch strength 120 can be accommodated. This is the only reason we are doing it in on WebEx. So anyhow, basically, I was discussing stuff related to your responses. Please respond to that form. There are still more than 60 people, I guess, who have not responded. There are about 170 responses for that. The reason I'm saying this is because we need to resolve this, right? I need to find a way in which you can learn the most. Okay, if you feel live lecturing can be more helpful, I'm ready to do that. The issue with me is this mixed thing that a lot of people have said, mixture of both. This mixture of both is very difficult to achieve practically, because uh, I really it's only till June. So but it is there, right? Can we use it right now there? Oh, no recording. Ah, okay. Then that is something we will have to check. Okay. Can someone please figure it out for me? Pranav, please, can you do that? Pranav, or
Yes, sir.
okay. So please check out and tell me uh, uh, what is their policy, and are there any ways to record stuff,
So
right?
you could
Because
always
recording is,
use OBS.
pardon?
So there's a software called OBS. It's used for screen recording and stuff.
See, I can use screen recording, right? I mean, I use screen recording only. It's a very simple thing. But the problem is that will be my view of the lecture, right? Many a times I go away, right? I mean, my my internet connection is not that well. But the good thing with WebEx recording is, even if your internet connection and your listeners internet connection is if the speaker's internet connection is good, it gets recorded. So that is why, it is better that the recording is done by the host, the host platform. So that is the reason. Okay. We'll come back to Microsoft Teams thing, right? I mean, that we will discuss, but today we have to start. I just need, please, anyone can be volunteers. We have already lost a lot of time. I need
So
5
I'll
volunteers. Okay, Pranav will be one. Let me start. Just a minute. Let me open my shepherding sheet. Uh, shepherding. Okay. Pranav, you are from CSAI or CS?
AI roll number 10.
CSAI. Roll number 10. Okay. Pranav. Got it. Let me just make it 12 January. Okay. Who else? Arush, Vivek, Nehal. One more person I need. Arush, your section.
Sir, I can.
Sorry.
So my section is CS. CS.
CS. Okay. CS. Arush. Nehal, your section. I'm not seeing the chats right now.
So CS.
CS. Just a minute. Okay, then after Nehal, Arush, I have done. Shashwat, your section.
CS, sir.
Vivek, I will. Okay, Vivek and Shashwat as well. Yeah, so I needed 5. I've got it. So Shashwat, got it. And Vivek, your section.
CS 37.
Okay, so we have 5 now. I think I have counted 5. Yeah, so let's start, guys. It's already too late. 37. Got it. So let's start. I'll share my screen. I don't, again, from my perspective, it should not be too long, but right, I don't know, how the discussion would go away. Uh, so let's start, guys. I'll mute myself. Uh, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we are familiar with the physical dimensions, like a string is a one-dimensional element and a floor we can consider as a two-dimensional element. And a room can be considered a three-dimensional element. Similarly, we can think of it in arrays as well. When we make a one-dimensional array, the elements are stored sequentially in just a single line, one after the other. And if we think of a two-dimensional array, then they will be stored in a tiling situation, like we tile the floor of a room. They can be X and Y coordinates for the tiles. So each elements can also be stored in that fashion. And there can be any dimensions, any number of dimensions for an array. It is better to think of it like an array of an array as an element.
Any queries?
In in an array, dimensions are used for more specified or ordered way to show something. Like we want to mark 2 students, so we can do it in a particular one-dimensional things. But yeah, if we use 2 dimension, then we can separate them both with that particular thing. So that's why dimensions may play an important role in the arrays. Any question regarding dimensions?
So guys, is it clear like what is the motivation behind multidimensional arrays? Anyone who's still confused, what does it mean by dimensions? Please ask it right now. So I think it's clear. We can move to the next question.
Okay,
It's
so go ahead.
okay. It's never actually necessary to use a multi-dimensional array, but often it makes the task easy for us as the programmer, because for the computer, it stores both of them basically the same ways, and it doesn't really differentiate between multi-dimensional and one-dimensional. But for us as programmers, it often eases up things. For example, there are many programming questions where you have like a board game or something, and basically you have a 2D structure like a square or a rectangle, and in that case you could always theoretically store things, each row in the row could be a row of rows, and then you could make do with a one-dimensional array. But it's not the best way to go about it, because it's not easy for us to comprehend. While using a 2D array, then it becomes much easier for us to visualize what exactly is happening. So like if we have any case where there are more than 2 kind of properties of an element being stored in an array, like Shashwat had said, X and Y coordinates, that's very common. So in that case, it's much more intuitive to go with a 2D array than with a 1D array, but it's never necessary to use it.
I will only say one thing, that if we want to imagine two-dimensional array, then only think about the matrices which we studied in 12th class. Like it's more or less same, so we can understand that particular thing more easy way with the help of matrix. Any questions related to second question?
Vivek, actually, your voice is really low. Could you move the mic closer to you?
Explain it again.
Okay, Pranav. The thing I have said that for 2D array, to imagine 2D array, just imagine of what we have studied in matrices in our previous class. So it will help us very much, because matrices are more like the two-dimensional array which we can define here. So yeah, it will help.
So now is it clear, guys? Like why I mean, it is not necessary to use multidimensional arrays. Pretty much everything that you can do with multidimensional arrays can be done by single dimensional arrays as well. But it is more natural to use, let us say, two-dimensional array for something that looks like a matrix in the real world. Okay, it's easier for you to plan your code. It's easier for you to write your logic. This is the only difference. Okay, if anyone has any queries, please ask your shepherds. Okay, so we can move to the next question, guys.
I would like to add one more thing. It is important to understand that there can be any number of dimensions for an array. So to think of two-dimensional array as an array of elements which itself are a number of one-dimensional array is the best way to understand it, because this understanding can be scaled up. Like there can be 4D arrays which are made of, in which each element is a 3D array. You can understand it in this way. Okay, anyone can take the next question.
Okay, I'll take up the third question. Basically, the amount of like the difference in space is 0 because A2 is basically 5 by 5. So if you think about the matrix analogy, it's basically same as thinking about 5 rows and 5 columns. So the total number of elements will be 25. So basically, there will be no difference in the size which is stored. However, depending on the implementation, there might be a difference because pointer stuff. So I guess we'll discuss it later. But mostly, in most cases, you can assume that there is no difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the bookkeeping space, just the space of the variables. So yeah, as you were saying, that will be the same. The pointers and related stuff, you can probably call it bookkeeping space, right? I mean, the amount of stuff you will have to do for management. Okay, so it's like saying, in any institute, you have some staff which actually doesn't do anything but manage other staff, right? So. Uh, so that staff is not really contributing anything to the institute, but they are just helping in managing the institute or the organization. So the same thing is there. The actual number of bytes that you will require to uh, to to store those many number of variables, that will be exactly the same. There might be some difference in bookkeeping, as you said. Yeah, go ahead. Any queries on this, guys? Okay. So then we can probably move to the next question. This is the last question as well.
So I will like to answer this question.
Go ahead.
So one of the beautiful way to answer this multi-dimensional array, or I would like to say a 3D array, is RGB, which we, so it's a n times n array. Like it has layers of three times the layers of n matrices, and we use RGB in our daily, which our laptop screens are RGB. Every electronic things which we visualize is RGB.
I think, Arush, there is some problem with me hearing you. I'm not sure whether others have a problem or not.
No, so we can't hear him.
Yes, yes, it's a little robotic on my end too.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was talking that RGB is one of the good example of the three-dimensional array. It is n by 3 array. It's like three matrices aligned one after other, and we use RGB in our daily electronics, our laptops, our mobiles. So it's a very good example of multi-dimensional arrays.
You'll have to explain what that n by 3 is so that people can understand.
Yeah, like in two-dimensional arrays, we have a matrix. Like we have rows, we have columns. So in 3D array, we have 3 dimension: x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. So in z-axis, it is going like first is red, first layer is red, second layer is by blue, and third layer is by green. It's like that.
Okay. Can I try to would any other shepherd would like to answer it?
Yeah, I'll try.
Sir, I can, sir. Chalo, Pramana, you
Go ahead.
Yeah,
So
so here's the rule. Here's a rule from my side. Whenever there is a collision, the person whose last name's character is lexicographically smaller will get a preference. Okay, so now do it yourself.
Go ahead, Vivek.
Okay, so the real world example I can say it in the mark system, we have to give the marks of we have to give the marks of students, and then different students, like we can add another case, like the classes. We can add the classes of that particular student. Like we define first, we go through the classes, then we go through the students of particular class, and then the marks. So in that case, we can do that particular three-dimensional array. Like we first select the class, then define that particular student, and then the marks. So in that way, yeah, we can define the third three-dimensional array, and it will be more real world like.
Yeah, one more example is suppose if you have a scan like MRI scan or CAT scan, so it's basically a 3D image, right? It's a 3D thing. Or yeah, so if you want to store a video of that, so basically, how does the CT scan look after 5 minutes, or how does the MRI look after 5 minutes, and so on. So it's basically the fourth dimension would be time in this case. So you'd store scan at time t equals 0 minutes in array index 1. So that will be a 3 by 3 array. Then you'll store at time t equals 2 in something else, in 3 something else. So it will be a 4 by 4. Another real world example is 4D matrices are used heavily in graphics, but I don't think that's relevant. So
And one general
Yep.
rule we can say in case of multidimensional arrays is, I think, like when you think of the element that is in the array and the number of properties it can be defined or identified by. So like if there is just a row of students, so that is students each have a roll number, so that's just one thing, so that's a 1D array. And then if there is a student and then there are his marks, then it's like a 2D array. And if like Vivek said, then if he has a class and then it's a roll number in a class and his mark and his subject, so then that will be three-dimensional array. So it depends on how many properties you use to like identify an element, and that is the number of dimensions the multi-dimensional array like should have.
one more example is from mathematics. If you guys remember, we had 3D vectors and 3D, then we had planes and stuff like that. So if you could imagine that there are 4 dimensions, it's basically a mapping from a 3 dimensional space to 1 dimensional space. So that's where you could have a 3 dimensional array and then the mapping result in a 1 dimensional array.
Yeah, as Nihal said, the more condition we add to it, the more dimensions we can go through it. But yeah, it will be more hectic to follow after the three dimensions. So yeah, we generally use three dimensions only, maximum, I guess.
What Arush was trying to say at the beginning, his example was pretty simple. He said n by 3 dimensions. He said that because we know that each image is made out of some number of pixels in the x coordinate, x-axis, and some number of pixels in the y coordinate. And by n is meant to explain that. Like we say 1080 by 1920, that is the resolution of an image. So that is n by n, and each pixel can have color which is determined by the RGB values, which are the other three, like red, green, and blue. So n by 3. With n by n, the x and y coordinate, we can pinpoint each pixel, and by 3, the 3 values, we can get the color for each pixel. So this becomes a 3 plus 2, 5-dimensional array, in which we can store an entire image. And if we want to make it a video, then we can have another dimension which will give us the time. So the pixels keep changing with time. For each different timestamp, there'll be a different color for each pixel.
Basically a video. Guys, any questions? Anyone? how I like to do it is I think of the fourth dimension as time. So like if you have a three-dimensional array and then the fourth dimension is time, so like that kind of helps in visualizing. Not really, but yeah.
So I think out of all the examples, probably the image one is something that you guys would have seen anyhow, right? Uh, there would have been so many things where they write things like the resolution of this image is this much cross this much, right? Um, so uh, so basically this is where the idea is that if it is a this much cross this much thing, it looks like it is a two-dimensional array that you have to store values for those many number of pixels. Okay, so if the image is x cross y, you need to store uh, a color value for x into y number of pixels. But actually what happens is that for we don't actually store one value. That one value is itself stored into three different values: R, G, and B. So red value, green value, and blue value. So what happens is for each pixel, you have to store three values. Okay. So then this is why it becomes it becomes a three-dimensional array: x cross y cross 3. Okay. Because for each x cross y pixel, you need three values to be stored. And don't worry too much about four dimensions as of now. Usually in most cases you would not require more than three dimensions in most cases. Okay. um, uh, Three dimensions itself is because beyond four dimensions, three dimensions, it becomes difficult to visualize it in your brain, right? So I gave you that image of hypercube. So essentially the idea is that uh, have you guys so what are you guys studying in mathematics? Okay, have you guys studied something like hyperplanes or something like that? N-dimensional
No,
planes. Okay, so that is the idea that basically it's okay. So you might study in, do you have mathematics later on as well in your syllabus? If you have, you'll study
hopefully
things about
yes. Sir.
okay,
So
and
mathematics is
especially if you
going
guys
beyond
do
our
machine learning.
imaginations.
So if you guys do machine learning, there will be a term called hyperplane, which essentially means it is some kind of an n-dimensional space. Okay, it's difficult to imagine n-dimensional space. I mean, you can probably still imagine a four-dimensional space similar to what there is an image from Wikipedia, I think, where they try to show what exactly does it mean by four dimensions, but even that is not easy to visualize. Okay. So beyond four it becomes even more difficult to talk about dimensions. But as I said, don't go into that direction more. Most, because this is something that you have to understand, because as human beings our actual world is three dimensional, right? Almost all the things that you will see in your life can probably be modeled with up to three dimensions. Okay, it's not as it's not always three dimensional. It may be multidimensional. Some of the examples the shepherds have already given. So for example, if you have a three dimensional data that is also a time series, then it already becomes a four dimensional data because the fourth dimension is time. Sometimes I gave you an example in the hint. Okay, this is about weather data. Do you know how weather data gets collected? So what happens is there are observation points across the earth. Okay. um, so so there's probably a observation point somewhere in Lucknow. There could be more than one as well, by the way. And then there could be one in Kanpur, there could be one in Allahabad, there could be one, I'm not sure, Varanasi, something like this. So what happens is these weather websites, okay, what they have is something like this. The bottommost layer is basically just some data, right? Data as in it will have things like temperature, pressure, humidity, stuff like that, right? So there is like one layer of data. Let's just assume that they collect some four or five elements at each center, right? Then what happens? You can probably see it in on their websites, that you can actually go and type the name of a country, the name of a city. Usually it's at the city level that you can actually find temperatures and variations at the level of a city. You can also, so it's like this, you can build up from there. Okay, it's already a one dimensional array of some elements, and then what you do is you basically say, okay, if I have four different pieces of data coming from Lucknow, then Lucknow is another dimension, city is another dimension. Then there, similarly, there could be a state dimension, there could be a country dimension, stuff like that, right? So the it's the same data, understand this. Okay, what you're collecting are those five elements from, let us say, 1 million places. But and you can have, let us say, if there are 1 million observation points across earth, and there are five pieces of data that you are collecting, and let's assume that they are all integers or same data type, you can in theory store them in an array of 5 million, a single dimensional 5 million array. But you can and I have given you an example in the code where I do the same thing using a 1D array and the same thing using a 2D array. So in theory it is possible, right? But it will be very unnatural. It's difficult to visualize stuff, because in the real world, that data has more semantics to it. Okay, so four elements of Lucknow will be more closely related to each other, let us say, from four elements of Delhi or four elements of Jaipur or something like that. So this dimensionality concept that we have in programming, it helps you in building your logic easily. Okay, at the level of computers it's probably the same. Okay, for them they are just contiguous memories, but you can use these memories in such a way that your logic can be formulated easily. Okay, so that is why that 5 cross 5 array versus an array of 25, this is where it differs. Okay, it is probably saying that you have 5 cities, and in each city you are collecting 5 different weather points. Okay, it's easier for you to understand. You can always collect it in a 25 element one dimensional array. Okay, so this is the only thing you guys need to understand. Okay, the difference between a multi-dimensional array and a single dimensional array is not really at the level of memory. Okay, they say they take the same amount of memory, and even if there is some difference in bookkeeping, that is negligible. Okay, so for now just assume that they take the same amount of memory. The only thing that differs is how you visualize it. When you're writing your own code, how do you treat a single piece of data? This is where it differs. Do we have any more queries? And is there anyone who is still not sure about why we have multidimensional arrays? What is the point of having them? When do we use multidimensional array and when do we not? There is some question.
Sir, so basically adding dimension means we are adding more cases to it.
Not cases. It's a way to organize your data. Okay, so let me give you another example. If you go to a library, a physical library, I'm not sure how popular are physical libraries these days, but if you go to a library, what happens? They have, first of all, they have these sections in library, right? They say this is the literature section, this is the textbook section, this is the reference book section. Then they can also have things like, this is the computer science section, this is the electronics section, this is the electrical section, so on and so forth. Then once you go inside a particular section, they have these racks, right? So they say, okay, so this is where operating system books are, this is where computer networks books are, this is where some other books are, and then when you go to a particular rack, there you will have the books arranged in a alphabetic order or some order, some accession number order, some order, right? So why do you do that? What is the advantage of dividing your library into sections and subsections and racks? It is easier for you to browse through it, right? In theory they can simply put all the books there, just one accession number, and you find it out yourself. But it is easier for you to visualize data in such a way. You don't go to a library to find a book. You go to a library to find a book on operating systems or on computer networks, or you have a specific requirement that I want this particular book. So this is the idea. This is where multi-dimensional arrays come in. It's the same data, but do you want to organize it differently in such a way that it is easier for you to work with it? This is the idea. Okay, so when I say it's a three-dimensional array, each dimension has certain meaning to it, right? I mean, usually, otherwise it doesn't make sense to add a dimension. Each dimension has some meaning in the real world. Okay, so if as Arush and Shashwat explained, if you have a x cross y cross 3 matrix for storing a picture, each dimension has has a value, has a meaning. X means it is the height, or width, whatever it is, right? I mean, usually it is width cross height. So x is width, y is height, and 3 is because you have three elements that contribute, that are used to form a color: red, blue, and green. So this is the idea, that you have the same data, but from the perspective of the real world, you can actually organize it differently. This is where you use multidimensional arrays. Okay, so any more queries about any more discussions, any more nice examples that you can think of which you would like to share? That this is where multidimensional array is very helpful. Any more examples or confusions that may have cropped in after this discussion?
Sir, so basically we cannot print the whole 3D or 4D array. First we have to specify the section and then we are able to print only a 2D array.
S- uh, okay, I'm not able to understand. Section, are you going back to
Means
the library?
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. So in the
So
libraries,
for
yeah. So let us say if we take up the library example further, um, what exactly is it that is associated with the book? Okay, in a library, its name and its accession number, right? That is the only thing that that is there. That is unique, right? Not name. Even name may not be unique, but that accession number that they give you, that is unique for each book. Okay, so essentially you can consider that. So if you want to write a program, for example, which prints accession number for all the books, that is very simple. For you it is just a one dimensional array, right? It's the accession. There is a lowest accession number and a highest one. If you write a loop, somehow you can print all of it. But if you give just these numbers to someone, how would it make sense? This is the idea. This is where you add another dimension, that these numbers, these to these, are for books related to operating system. Number these to these are for books related to networks. Okay, so on and so forth. Now this is what you have to understand, that when you start using multi-dimensional arrays, the bottom layer, it's exactly the same, right? The data that you actually store, it is just accession number, right? It's just that I would probably like it to be categorized in some way. Okay, so I can have, let us say, um, let's say I have four sections in my library: literature, textbooks, reference books, and leisure. Okay, so then it's a four. It's the topmost dimension has four different possible values. Then in textbook section you have three subsections. Computer science textbooks, electronics textbooks, and mathematics textbooks. So now, for a particular dimension in the first, for a particular value in the first dimension, that is textbooks, you have now three different possibilities in the second dimension, that these are the three things. And then the last layer is basically the set of accession numbers for different types of books. uh, I'm not sure I'm able to explain it that well. The idea is, probably library is not a good example. um, would anyone else like to come up with any other example? I think the picture example is the simplest example. That what do you have in a picture? A picture is just a collection of pixels, right? And you need to store what color is there for each pixel. This is the only information you want to store, right? Now, but if you organize it in an x cross y cross 3 thing, right? Why is it easier? Because this is exactly how a picture looks like, right? A picture has width, a picture has height. So if I organize my last level, my set of colors in such a way, I can also comment things like you know uh, the, let us crop the top 50 cross 30 elements of this picture. Then it becomes very easier, because you have organized your picture in such a way. You can still do this cropping thing with the help of a one dimensional array. You just have to do a lot of arithmetic. So in the code that I have shown you in the examples, it is doing the same thing but with a lot of arithmetic. You'll have to do a lot of arithmetic to figure out what is the actual element where this particular information is stored. If you use multidimensional arrays, that arithmetic goes away, okay, because you have organized it in such a way. um, is it getting clearer, or it's becoming even more difficult to understand? I'm not sure. Sometimes I just go with the flow. uh, so right, is it clearer, guys? Why do we fine? So let's hope it gets clearer. And anyhow, as you start writing code, there will be days when you'll understand that I need a 2 or 3 dimensional array, right? It's because, or what you can do is something like this. You start with one dimensional array and try to write your logic with one dimensional array. You'll understand the problems with it. Okay, you'll understand why uh, imagining everything in one dimension is difficult. There will be so much arithmetic you will have to do. And then you will at some point of time you would basically say, hey, I wanted to know only the accession numbers of computer science operating system textbooks. Why do I have to go through this array and find out where exactly do they start? Okay. And then you'll understand, okay, maybe a better way is to simply say textbook computer science all accession numbers, something like this. Okay. Anyhow, so any more doubts on multidimensional arrays?
So I have a possible example of 3D arrays.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's maybe if you imagine a game of chess, like the whole game, let's say the whole game lasted 100 turns. So you could have an array of size 100 by 8 by 8. So the first element would be the time, like the which turn it is. Second and third are storing a 2 by 2 array of the pieces on the board, something like that.
Okay. Again, I mean, we are almost done with the time for the lecture. Uh, any more questions? We can probably have one more question if we have.
Sir,
Go
the
ahead.
major difference between row major order and the column major order is the path they follow, or any other difference?
It's basically better. And so when you access them, it's exactly the same. There's no difference. It's more about optimizing your access time. Okay. So for example, when you use Excel, you usually perform operations over a column, right? I mean, you usually don't perform the same operation over a row. So if I'm storing an Excel sheet, it probably makes sense to store it in a column major format, for example, right? All these machine learning related activities, they are usually performed in that way, in such a way that you try to access a particular column and not a particular row. So this is where in fact, I'm sorry, I should have included column and row major. uh, Sorry, this is my fault. I should have included a question on that. If you want, we can discuss more on row major and column major tomorrow. Okay, because it's an important point that I've missed putting a question about. So anyhow, the column major thing is just about storing your data in a different fashion, which is more that the idea for this is coming from the perspective of use, that the operations that you will perform on the data, you would like all values in a column at some point of time rather than all values in a row. If you want all values in a row, it makes sense to store it in row major format, so that once I read a block of memory, it's because we don't read memory in one byte at a time. Okay, there is a minimum amount of uh, memory that I read in one go. So if it is row major and I have already read, even if you wanted ARR 0, I will have to probably read from ARR 0 to ARR 10 or something like that. Okay, and if you ask for ARR 1 next, it is easier because it has already been fetched into memory and maybe even in the cache. So it is more about how you use the data. In general, let me say that in general we use data in the row fashion only. Okay, we try to access elements in a row wise fashion. So row major is easier to it's easier to understand, it's easier to visualize. Column major things are usually more prevalent in the Excel world and data processing world, okay, where you try to perform some kind of operation on one particular column. So this is where row major and column major come in. We will discuss more on this. Sorry, I should have included it. Tomorrow's lecture is not that big actually, so we'll start from row major and column major tomorrow. And I guess you guys have a class, so let's break now. Please respond to Shreya's mail if you have not already done that, and we will discuss more on possible ways to take up the class tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.